Alright guys, we are watching a paradox, an impossibility playing out in real time. By every metric you can see the Women's National Basketball Association has never been more popular. The game is electric, the arenas are packed, and a new generation of superstars, led by the phenomenon that is Caitlin Clark, is grabbing the national spotlight like never before. Viewership isn't just up, it's shattering records. Merchandise is flying off the shelves. The cultural relevance of the league is at an absolute fever pitch. You can feel it. This is the explosive growth every sports league dreams of. But behind the sold-out crowds and viral highlights, a completely different story is unfolding. It's a story told not in points and assists, but in dollars and cents. And those numbers are brutal. While the league publicly celebrates its success, behind the scenes, it is reportedly hemorrhaging cash. We're talking staggering losses, a financial black hole that seems to grow deeper even as the league's popularity soars. It's an operation being almost entirely propped up by its big brother, the NBA, through a multi-million-dollar annual bailout that has kept the dream alive for nearly 3 decades. Now that dream is facing its greatest threat. The very players driving this unprecedented growth are demanding a seismic shift in how the money works. They're pushing for a revenue share that's standard in men's pro sports, but it's a demand the WNBA, as it stands, simply can't afford. This isn't just a negotiation, it's a standoff at the edge of a cliff. The entire operation, the teams, the players, the 30 years of history is teetering. The league that is soaring to new heights is also somehow facing the very real possibility of a catastrophic setback. So the billion-dollar question is this: are we watching the spectacular rise of a new sports titan, or are we witnessing the final dramatic implosion of the WNBA? It all starts with a number that just doesn't make sense. In 2024, a year of record-breaking attention, the WNBA reportedly lost around $40 million. Let that sink in. Not broke even. Not a small loss, a $40 million hole. And that was supposedly an improvement from the year before, which saw reported losses closer to $50 million. This isn't a new problem, it's a chronic condition the league has had since day one. To put it bluntly, the WNBA as a standalone business has never made a profit. For its entire existence, it has been on financial life support, with the NBA acting as its generous benefactor. But with players rightfully demanding their share of the booming revenue they're creating, and with owners staring down an economic model that is fundamentally broken, the question is no longer if the support will be enough. The question is, how much longer can this possibly go on? To understand how we got here, we have to go back to the beginning. The year is 1997. The NBA, riding the global wave of Michael Jordan's superstardom, is at the peak of its power. After the wildly successful 1996 Olympic women's basketball team, the league's execs saw an opportunity. The slogan was perfect, a confident declaration of intent: we got next. The WNBA was born not as a scrappy startup, but as the ordained successor to the women's game, backed by the full marketing and financial might of the NBA. It launched with a bang, placing teams in major markets and stocking them with icons like Rebecca Lobo, Lisa Leslie, and the electrifying Sheryl Swoopes. The excitement was real. The league had a major TV deal with NBC, Lifetime, and ESPN right out of the gate. The first ever WNBA game, between the New York Liberty and the Los Angeles Sparks, felt like history in the making. But what many forget is that the WNBA wasn't the only game in town. The American Basketball League, or ABL, was already up and running. The ABL was a more traditional league, and by many accounts, it had better talent at the time because it paid more. But it couldn't compete. The NBA basically decided to create its own league and used its immense resources to muscle the ABL out of existence. They operated the WNBA at a loss from day one as a strategic move to monopolize the market, assuming that once the competition was gone, profits would follow. The ABL folded in 1998, leaving the WNBA all alone. The first part of the plan worked. The second part, the profits never showed up. After the initial hype wore off, reality set in. Attendance started to dip. TV ratings were often disappointing. Several original franchises either folded or had to relocate in the early 2000s, including the Houston Comets, who won the first 4 championships and then ceased operations a decade later. It was a brutal correction. Sheryl Swoopes famously said, "Playing in some arenas back then felt like being in a ghost town." Yet the league survived. It survived because of its players' determination and the NBA's unwavering financial support. It was more than a business. It was a mission to create a viable path for women in sports, a goal deemed too important to fail. But this very foundation, survival at any cost, paid for by a rich parent, created the dependency that threatens the league today. The WNBA was never forced to build a self-sustaining business. It was a passion project, an investment in social progress, and a marketing expense for the NBA. For decades, that was enough. But as the league's star power reaches unprecedented levels, the cracks in that growth at all costs model are starting to show. The dream was real, but it was built on borrowed money. And now the bill is coming due. So let's talk about the money, or more accurately, the lack of it. For years, the WNBA's exact financial state has been a mystery. The league isn't publicly traded, so its reports aren't public. The numbers that do come out are usually from unnamed sources, with little hard data to back them up. But from what has been reported, the picture is grim. The most common figure cited is an average annual loss of over $10 million for most of the league's history. But recent reports suggest it's gotten much worse. In 2023, the league was projected to lose around $50 million. In 2024, despite the massive surge in popularity, reported losses were still around $40 million. How is that possible? It's a simple, brutal equation. Expenses are climbing even faster than revenue. A reported financial analysis for 2025 offered a shocking look under the hood. The league's revenue had surged to an estimated $200 million, a huge jump driven by new deals and media hype, but expenses had ballooned to an estimated $240 million, creating that $40 million operating loss. One of the biggest new costs? Charter flights. After years of players flying commercial, a major point of contention, the league finally agreed to fund charter flights for all teams. It was a necessary step for a pro league, but it came with a hefty price tag, an estimated $25 million in new costs each year. And who covers this massive shortfall? The NBA. The league's board of governors, made up of NBA team owners, has been subsidizing the WNBA since the beginning. It's the ultimate safety net, but it's also a golden cage. One anonymous executive described the situation in blunt terms: "We're a charity case in women's sports clothing." This financial dependency creates a vicious cycle. The league struggles to attract outside investment because it isn't profitable. It can't become profitable without major investment in marketing and infrastructure. But it can't afford that investment because it's already losing tens of millions a year. The NBA's support, while keeping the league alive, may have also prevented it from facing the harsh realities that would have forced it to innovate or die. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver has always said the goal is for the WNBA to become a self-sustaining business. But as the losses mount and the calls for higher player pay get louder, the patience of the NBA's owners is being tested. At the end of the day, they are business people, and even a passion project needs to show a return on investment eventually. If you only looked at the TV ratings, you'd think the WNBA was on top of the world. The numbers, especially since 2024, have been staggering. The Caitlin Clark effect was undeniable. Her arrival, along with other magnetic rookies like Angel Reese, drew in millions of new fans. Indiana Fever games became must-see TV, smashing viewership records on a weekly basis. That momentum was projected to continue into 2025, which was on track to be the most-watched season in ESPN's history, with playoff viewership also trending up. Attendance hit an all-time high, with fans packing arenas. The new Golden State Valkyries sold out every single home game in their first season, averaging over 18,000 fans. On the surface, it's a story of pure success. But when you dig deeper, a more complicated picture emerges. The growth wasn't uniform. The Caitlin Clark effect was so powerful it skewed the entire dataset. Games with the Indiana Fever were ratings gold. Games without them, the numbers were far more modest. When Clark was sidelined with an injury in 2025, reports suggested a significant dip in viewership and ticket sales for other games. This created what you might call hero dependency. Is the league's success tied to the entire WNBA brand, or is it disproportionately reliant on one transcendent superstar? Critics point to the 2025 All-Star Game as proof. With Clark unable to play, the game's viewership saw a reported drop compared to the 2024 game where she was a main attraction. This creates a huge problem. While the league is riding the Clark wave, it knows that relying so heavily on one or two players is a dangerous game. What happens when the hype cools? What happens when these stars retire? The league's engagement is also tied to its players' outspokenness on social justice issues. While this has energized a loyal and passionate fan base, it has also alienated some potential viewers and sponsors. This puts the league in a tough spot. caught between its players' identities as activists and corporate pressure to maintain a brand-safe image. The viewership numbers are spectacular, but they might be the peak of a roller coaster. The league's challenge is to turn this sugar high into sustainable long-term nutrition before the ride comes to a sudden stop. Every pro sports league is a partnership between owners with the capital and players with the talent. When that partnership breaks down, everything grinds to a halt. Right now, in early 2026, the partnership between the WNBA and its players is more fractured than ever. This is a battle over the league's very future, and it's the most immediate threat to its existence. The flashpoint is the Collective Bargaining Agreement, or CBA, the master contract that dictates everything from salaries to revenue sharing. The old CBA was signed in 2020, a pre-Caitlin Clark world. In October 2024, seeing the geyser of new revenue, the Players Association opted out of that deal, forcing everyone back to the table to hammer out a new one before the 2026 season. The players' main demand is simple and revolutionary. They want a revenue split that mirrors men's leagues. In the NBA and NFL, players get roughly 50% of league revenue. In the WNBA, that number has been reported to be less than 10%. The union's proposal asks for a 30% share of gross revenue and a massive jump in the team's salary cap, from about $1.5 million to over $10 million. The owners heard this and saw an existential threat. How can a league reportedly losing $40 million a year suddenly afford to triple its salary costs? Their counter-offer reportedly involves sharing up to 70% of the league's net revenue, meaning profits. But there's the catch. There are no profits. Sharing a percentage of a negative number is still zero. The players see this as a shell game to keep them locked into low salaries while revenue explodes. The owners see it as the only responsible path for a business drowning in red ink. The deadline to reach a deal came and went. The league is now in a moratorium where all business, including free agency and a critical expansion draft, is frozen. In a powerful move, the players' union announced it had authorized a strike if necessary, with 98% of players supporting the vote. Star players are taking to social media, with Aja Wilson posting a clear message, "Somebody better start talking right now before I start screaming." A player strike or an owner-led lockout would be catastrophic. It would halt the 2026 season just as the league is set to start its huge new media rights deal. It would kill the incredible momentum built over the past 2 years. It would be a self-inflicted wound from which the league might not recover. The WNBA has never lost a game to a work stoppage. But now, for the first time, both sides are in a high-stakes stare-down and the clock is ticking. While the CBA battle rages, a storm of internal power plays and political controversies is brewing, further destabilizing an already fragile league. The pressure is on, and the leadership is feeling the heat. Rumors have been swirling for months about the future of Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. Hired in 2019 to drive growth, she has overseen both the recent boom and the escalating labor strife. While she publicly remains optimistic, insiders whisper that the constant battles have taken their toll. The league has denied these rumors, but that hasn't stopped the speculation, adding another layer of uncertainty at the worst possible time. Perhaps more alarming is the threat of a talent exodus. While stars like Caitlin Clark are on rookie contracts, many veteran players have options. For years, top WNBA players have made more money playing overseas in the offseason in places like Russia, China, and Turkey. With the WNBA's future in limbo, the idea of players signing more lucrative, stable contracts abroad is very real. If a strike cancels even part of the 2026 season, that trickle of players heading overseas could become a flood, gutting the league of its talent. And then there's the logistical chaos. The league is set to welcome 2 new expansion teams in 2026 in Toronto and Portland, a landmark moment. There's just one problem with all league business frozen. The expansion draft to give these teams players hasn't happened. These new franchises, which have paid massive expansion fees, have no one on their rosters just months before the season is supposed to start. It's an administrative nightmare that perfectly captures the current state of the league. A body planning for ambitious growth, while its very heart, the agreement with its players has stopped beating. This is the central contradiction of the WNBA's crisis. If the league is such a financial disaster, why is smart money suddenly pouring in? Why are franchise values and media deals exploding? The answer is that investors aren't buying the WNBA of today, they're placing a massive bet on the WNBA of tomorrow. Let's look at the boom signals, and they are impressive. In 2026, the league is set to begin a new 11-year media rights deal worth a reported $2.2 billion, which is about $200 million annually. This is a monumental increase and provides a long-term, stable source of revenue. Sponsorships are also surging, reportedly hitting new highs, with major brands like Nike and State Farm doubling down. Most telling is the price of a team. The Golden State Valkyries paid a $50 million expansion fee. The new teams in Toronto and Portland are expected to pay even more. A recent sale of a minority stake in the New York Liberty was done at a staggering $450 million valuation for the team. The average WNBA team is now valued at over $270 million. These are not the numbers of a dying league. These are the numbers of a growth industry. Investors are looking at women's sports as a whole and seeing a market that is wildly undervalued. They believe the current losses are just short-term growing pains. But here's the bust risk. These billion-dollar valuations are based on a future that isn't guaranteed. As one Forbes analysis put it, they are a bet on potential, not a reflection of current economic reality. The new media money, while huge, may not be enough to both cover the league's existing losses and satisfy the players' demands for a much larger revenue share. This creates the ultimate chicken and egg problem. The league needs players to drive the growth that will make it profitable. The players need the league to be profitable to get paid what they're worth. The entire structure is built on future growth, but the present-day reality is a house of cards. If the NBA decides its subsidy is no longer a wise investment, or if a prolonged strike shatters the league's momentum, that bright future may never arrive. The boom signals are real, but so are the risks. The question is whether the WNBA is a rocket ship on the launch pad, or an elaborate fireworks display just before it fizzles out. So we stand at a historic crossroads. The WNBA is two things at once. It's a cultural phenomenon, a beacon of empowerment, and a league with more star power than ever. It is also a business that has been fundamentally broken for 30 years, a financial vortex sustained by a subsidy that can't last forever. Both of these things are true. The collision between them will define the future of women's pro basketball in America. There are a few ways this could go. The first is the optimistic one. This crisis forces a great reset. The players compromise on their demands in the short term, securing huge salary gains and a path to a bigger piece of the pie down the road. The owners, seeing the new media deal and soaring values, agree to lose money for a few more years, viewing it as the final investment needed to reach profitability. The league emerges stronger and finally on a path to standing on its own. The second path is the pessimistic one, a shutdown. The two sides refuse to budge. A work stoppage cancels the 2026 season. The momentum dies. The new media partners get cold feet. The NBA decides to finally pull the plug. The league folds, becoming a cautionary tale in sports history. But there is a third, more complex possibility. What if this threat, this very public and painful negotiation, is not the end, but the beginning? What if this is the moment the WNBA finally sheds its identity as the NBA's little sister and is forced to stand on its own? This crisis could be the catalyst that forces a radical reinvention, a new business model, new ownership, and a new, more transparent partnership with its players. The survival of the WNBA may not depend on avoiding this fight, but on surviving it. Its greatest test might just be its greatest opportunity. This is no longer just a question of whether you watch the games, it's a question of what you believe the future of sports should look like. So I have to ask you, what do you think will happen? Are the players right to demand their share now, even if it risks the whole enterprise? Or should they take a smaller piece to ensure the league survives? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This is one of the most important conversations happening in sports, and your voice is part of it. If you found this valuable, do me a favor and hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed for more analysis on the business of sports. Thanks for watching.